Thames Valley Chamber of Commerce. Fantastic to see everybody on this morning and coming out in numbers in what is a very cold, snowy morning here in Windsor, and I imagine it's much the same with most of you around the country. We have a Scotsman and we have a Welshman on this morning, so I won't tell too many jokes about the rugby. All I will say is it was a fantastic win for respective teams at the weekend, and long may that continue. Thank you everyone for joining us this morning. My name's Sandy Kirkpatrick, and I am one of the account managers here at the Thames Valley Chamber of Commerce. Hopefully some of you have met me before. If not, then good morning. And I cover predominantly Oxford, Reading and Bracknell, but branch out into a little bit into Buckinghamshire and Slough as well. So I'm joined this morning by a long-standing member and friend of the Chamber, Ryan Howe from Monchu. Monchu are a creative agency up in Oxford. I will let Ryan do all the intros. Can you just flick back one slide, please, Ryan, onto your intro slide?
We've got to go back this way, haven't we? There we go.
That's the one. There we go. So fantastic to have Ryan and the Monchu team on here this morning. A very applicable subject we're looking at, and Ryan's going to present a COVID business survival kit. Hopefully everyone's managing to stay safe and stay well during lockdown 3. And I imagine the topic this morning will be very, very relevant to a lot of people that are on the call this morning. So without further ado, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to hand over to Ryan, who's going to lead today's webinar. The only other thing I will say is there is a chat function on the call here this morning, so please use that, submit your questions. I think throughout, Ryan, we're not going to wait until the end. We're just going to have them throughout. If there's any questions that you'd like to ask, then fire away, and we'll be more than happy to answer them as we go. So, Ryan, over to you.
Thanks very much, Sandy. Thanks for warming up the room with the rugby jokes. Hopefully, hopefully people aren't too down in the mouth about England losing on the weekend. It was a good weekend of sport anyway. Yeah, I think the topic or the title of my first slide really is not perhaps indicative of the presentation that I'm going to deliver or the conversation that I want to have, because two things really. Firstly, we called it a COVID brand survival kit. This is a resource that we developed with our clients and also for our clients and prospective clients as well. Now, I think it should be more a COVID adaptation kit, because surviving COVID obviously is quite a contentious subject, you know, and I'm sure that everyone here has had experience with somebody who has had the illness. So I don't want to make light of it in any way. And I'm not suggesting that anything in this presentation can actually help you survive COVID. But going on to my second point, I really want this to be a more of a dialogue than me just presenting my thoughts, because what this exercise was our business really asking our community of clients and suppliers and partners what they were doing to adapt to the economic climate which has been created by the pandemic. So, I mean, first of all, what I'll do is introduce myself, okay? If I can click onto the next slide, here we go. As Sandy said, my name is Ryan Howe. I'm the director of Monchu. I don't know why it's gone on 2 slides here, hold on. This is some of the nice work that we've done. I'm gonna go back. I graduated really as a designer, so a designer of furniture and products. That's what I was trained. That was my training. But really, what design taught me was a way of thinking, and design. What I view as design is not about a nice looking end product. It's about the process of getting to something. It's about kind of analysing and adapting to challenges and overcoming them in order to achieve a goal. That's kind of simply put. I went into the creative industry mainly in London and later in Birmingham, but I was working for large agencies and doing kind of marketing campaigns for people like Pfizer, Adidas, Diageo, really massive organizations and huge brands around the world that had the money to invest in into their marketing, into their design, graphic design, into their websites, everything, really to keep their brands in the forefront of our minds, which is what branding is. So I became very interested in branding, and I also became very interested in how design and design thinking can influence people's behaviors. So in 2009, 2010, I actually moved to a very small agency in the West Midlands, and I was working with Public Health England to work on things like the smoke-free brand, which was about Public Health England's attempt to get people to stop smoking, to change their behaviours. And I did a lot of campaigns around road safety, medication wastage, attending doctors, road safety. Did I say that, road safety? And drug and alcohol awareness, stuff like that. So it was really using the skills that I'd learned in the commercial sector to try and help people in a sociological fashion. Okay, I don't want to go too much on about myself, but that gives you a little bit of a background of who I am and what I do. My business, Monchu, was started 7 years ago, and really I started it as a studio to try and apply to make the things that I'd learned in the commercial sector available to not-for-profits, charities, and education, people who wouldn't necessarily invest those big budgets in their brand or in their marketing or in their design. So it was an attempt, I suppose, in a way, to influence my country and the world in a positive way, instead of selling booze and selling trainers, which is what I had been doing. So anyway, these are some of our clients. What's fantastic about creating this community and giving and putting myself in the center of all of these brands is that, I mean, Monchu now has a really broad client list of we work with the University of Oxford, we work with the BBC, we work with the European Space Agency, and we work with small voluntary organizations with like 1 or 2 employees. And it's really fantastic to see how people are adapting to the pandemic in terms of their marketing, their communications, their function, their business development. And it's also wonderful to be able to share those experiences, and that's what I'm hoping to do today. So we developed this COVID brand survival kit because our clients, our suppliers, our partners were suffering, economically. People were unable to work, people were unable to go to work, and we were asking, this is quite bad now, what's going to happen next? So we listened to people and we compiled all of these different topics and tried to look for patterns, I guess. We tried to listen to questions and problems that were reoccurring in the assumption that other people would be experiencing those as well. It was a kind of statistics game, So so what follows in these slides, and I want to point out at any point, if you have a question, like raise your hand or make a note. We'll have a short question Q&A session at the end. But if you have something pressing that you want to jump in with at any time, raise your hand, and I'm sure that Sandy can help me field that question. But I'm going to go straight into the slides. I don't feel like you have to read any of these slides. I'm happy to share this with you after as well if you want to read it in more depth. But I'm just going to discuss some of the things that came back and some of the solutions that we've been helping clients with. So, I just skipped 2 slides there. So the first thing really was lots of our clients were saying that our business is just not prepared for this unprecedented change. And to be fair, who was expecting this to happen? Other than Bill Gates, who told us that it was going to be a massive pandemic, none of us could have really forecasted what it was going to be like to be literally restricted to our homes. and unable to work, and for businesses unable to trade, you know. And it really was, you know, at the beginning of the pandemic, it was really like, what has happened? How are we going to deal with this? You know, and a lot of people went into kind of fight, flight, or freeze mode, you know. And so, I mean, first of all, what we learned from larger organizations that had these kind of crisis management plans in place was that you have to get the basics in place. So, you know, how do you know what you're doing to trade? Do you know how you're communicating with your clients? And it was really like stripping things back to the essentials around how your business is able to function. Is it able to function in the climate? And, you know, and how can you do that effectively using the tools at your disposal? So, I mean, we ask people, you know, if you're trading, if you're a trader, for example, if you're a builder, you know, if you've got a website, you know, if you're any kind of business, if you've got some kind of web presence, you know, and that was what we were asking people. And again, you know, are your customers able to find you online? You know, it sounds like a really stupid question, but it's something which, I mean, it's something which we weren't doing effectively at the beginning of the pandemic, because we were actually, I discovered by looking on different search engines that we weren't discoverable online. So you couldn't find us using Bing, for example, one of the search engines. Excuse me for a minute, I'm just gonna get a tissue, my lip is cracked. Right.
I should also say that there will be the webinar is being recorded, and it will be available after the session today. It'll also be put on the Thames Valley Chamber YouTube channel and on our website as well, so you will be able to view it. And as I say, Ryan will be happy to share the slide post webinar as well.
Sure. So, I mean, yeah, just furthering on from that point, I mean, it's good for any business to really like step outside of themselves and say, if I wasn't aware of my business, if I wasn't, you know, coming at it from a customer point of view, can I get online and discover my business? You know, so is there, you know, basically, can my customers find me? So you know, kind of zoom out from your business and imagine it from your customer's point of view, and then you know, kind of take an audit of all the places that that your customers could find you. So the second thing was that we don't have the skills or experience to manage the necessary changes. I mean, my response to that was, to a lot of clients, is, you know, no one does really. You know, there are very few businesses or individuals that have all the skills and the experience necessary to manage such a colossal change, you know. And it's also important to remind ourselves at this point that not all businesses are the same in this economic climate, because for a lot of businesses, service-based businesses like myself, you know, we can operate largely online. So I'm not as naive to think that every business is just going to be able to adapt to these changes and go on their merry way, you know. So but it is important to focus on the things that we can do as opposed to the things that we can't, and that's my belief, you know, in anything in life. So the first thing that I did when the pandemic started was I sat down and I wrote a strategy, and I based this on what's the worst that could happen, and then I tracked back to what's actually the more likely situation to happen, you know. So, I mean, I forecasted the pandemic to last for 8 months. I mean, we're now into a year, right? We're approaching a year of kind of lockdowns and restrictions. So, but I had planned that in eight months' time, we were going to be in just as a precarious position as we were at the beginning. And what that enabled me to do is to look at what I could do within that time frame. So having a strategy is really important. I think the difference between a strategy and a plan is, a strategy is, you know, why you're going to do something, and a plan is how you're going to do it. So even if you write a strategy on one side of A4 or the back of a napkin, it's better to have a plan than to go into every day, go into every week, go into every quarter, you know, with uncertainty, because you'll just end up running in circles. And the second thing is you know, what we heard from especially our larger businesses was that they were identifying gaps in their business through their strategy and getting the right people in place. So it was about, you know, one of our clients said to us, you know, we realized we needed to sell more online because, you know, we could see online businesses going up because people weren't able to go out to the shops. And therefore we got in somebody who was an expert in e-commerce. Now these people are accessible, you know, they're not, you know, experts are accessible. They're not, you don't necessarily have to go through the traditional HR recruitment route. You know, there are websites where you can procure the services of people online who can really help your business. And that's what we often do. You know, as a business, we often we work on quite complex multi-layered projects. Like in 2018 and 2019, we produced a podcast series with a large publishing company. Now, I didn't know the first thing about audio recording. You know, I didn't know the first thing about script writing, but getting these people in to realize the objective of creating a podcast series, which was effectively a marketing tool, was something I was able to do by drafting in the right people. And that's really important, is to make sure that you have the right people in place. And also, this sounds kind of, I don't want it to sound patronizing or simplistic, but start small. You know, every day it's difficult, especially working from home, as we all have been doing, or most of us have been doing, I imagine. It's important to have small goals that are achievable every day. I mean, if you get up and you're in the same mode every day of like, I've got to answer all these emails, I've got to do all this stuff, it can, when you're alone working from home, it can feel quite overwhelming. So if you have a small achievable goal to do every day, we find, and our businesses and clients have found, that really helps. Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it earlier, but most of the large organizations that we deal with had a crisis management strategy in place. And a lot of those, including some of the universities we work with, had a crisis management plan which encompassed a pandemic and the knock-on effects. You know, they had hired consultants to say, how are we going to survive? How are we going to adapt in the event of a pandemic? And I think, whilst it's unrealistic for small businesses, many, you know, myself included, to have that level of expertise, it is still important to have a strategy that will help you manage a crisis. You know, I don't think the world is ever going to return to the way it was before necessarily. I hope it will ease up in terms of the lockdowns and the sanctions that we're undergoing. However, things have changed. It's important that we change with it. Another big question that came from a lot of our clients is that about brand awareness. You know, we have a presence online. We hire people who do PR. You know, we hire people who do marketing. However, it's difficult to get our brand out there because all the news is about COVID. I'm sure you've heard this before, but as human beings, you know, we have an inherent need to seek out bad news. You know, it's a survival mechanism. We always, you know, we're like meerkats or something, you know, ears pricking up when there's danger. And that the news media always puts out information about, you know, COVID or bad news because it sells papers, it attracts clicks, you know, and this is something which is really bad. The counter argument to that is if you want to get your business or your brand in front of consumers or your clients, is just to be present and not to be pushy. That came from my social media expert who works at Monchu, Nicole. She said, just, you know, be there, share information about COVID, share helpful tips, share things that people can do from home. You know, one of the things that we did with one of our charitable clients was we set up a Facebook Live, a weekly thing where the community could get together and share fun anecdotes and just be present in one another's company. You know, it wasn't about pushing the brand. It wasn't about asking for donations. It was just about being present, you know, and that consistency will resonate with your customers or your fundraisers or your volunteers or whatever it is that your business interacts with. And also to have the honesty to switch your focus as well. That was a big thing that that a lot of people said. Again, speaking to an audience, having a survey, doing a Twitter poll, just really simple stuff, you know, just to take the temperature of the room, ask people how they're feeling, ask people what, you know, their concerns are. This is why we did the COVID brand survival kit. You know, we wanted to hear people's concerns. We wanted to be able to respond to them. I mean, my business is, we call ourselves a creative agency. Ultimately, you know, do we sell websites? Do we sell graphic design? Do we sell? Yes, we sell all these things, but why we do this is that we want to help people overcome problems, and this is what we are doing with the survival kit. This is a big thing that people were saying to us. You know, government lockdowns meant that our premises is closed. I don't know how many people's offices have been closed, or their businesses are just unable to trade. We had a lot of pushback and a lot of concerns coming from people like hairdressers and personal trainers and massage therapists, people who weren't actually able to do their job. And again, it comes down to embracing the challenge and adapting to it. I mean, one of our clients does body work. So she basically she does yoga classes and she does body work with people. What we did is we set her up with a digital communication platform like we're on at the moment, so Zoom. And now, instead of seeing a class of 5 people for a yoga class, she's seeing a class of 50, based all around Devon and Dorset, all around that area. So actually, she's kind of embraced the challenge and adapted to it, you know, with the help of the tools at her disposal. And again, Joe Wicks, great example. You know, go from service providers to virtual teacher. You know, he set up a YouTube channel. Anyone can do it. It's fairly simple. And again, you know, product reviews or tutorials. That was something that other people did, which was really engaging for their audience. And if you're not on social media or you're not a fan of it, you hire somebody who does do it. You know, because everyone is on social media, especially your clients. This is a point again that I just kind of added in, which is about you know, successful entrepreneurs. You know, I think I've written that wrong, but market changes to real world challenges. So they look at the market as an opportunity to pivot as opposed to a challenge that they need to overcome. The last slide really from the questions that came back was that our competitors may be better prepared and equipped to change. And I mean, this is especially people in the kind of B2C were saying, how can we compete with the likes of Amazon? You know, we're trying to sell our products online, but you've got these massive companies that you know, that are putting huge dollars into SEO, you know, online marketing, direct marketing, all of these things. And whilst that's true, you have to remember, go back to the previous things, be present, you know, for your clients. People do appreciate buying local. People do appreciate buying from people who genuinely care. I don't know if you've ever tried to return something from Amazon, but that's a big selling point. You know, that's a big point of Amazon. It's very difficult to return products, and people know that. You know, the convenience is really, the convenience of shopping on a big online store is that you lose that human connection, and that's what people need the most, you know, during lockdown, during a global pandemic. And that was something, you know, we worked with the Oxford Covered Market with a campaign to kind of get people to shop online Christmas. Yeah, so I mean, the other thing that I want to pick off this slide is that, you know, if everyone is sending out emails to your clients, then try a different tact. Try sending something in the post. You know, we did a campaign for a client who wanted to reconnect with their customers during lockdown, and we arranged for them to send out small pouches of coffee from a local coffee producer with a little message on the things of coffee. I wish I had one to show you, in fact, that said, you know, we're not able to have a coffee together, but have a coffee on us. And it was enormously successful. They sent out 250 pouches of coffee. Each of the pouch of coffee made approximately, 2 or 3 cafetières, but that generated about £4,500 worth of business for that client. It was incredibly effective because it was so personal, it was so thoughtful. And I think that that's where, if you're a service provider or if you're a smaller business, that's where you can really come out head and shoulders above the competition. I think that's my last slide. Yeah, these are some of the things that we've been doing. I mean, I've talked a lot about Monchu, so we won't dwell on that. But if anyone has any questions at this point and wants to chime in, then I'd love to help you. Dead silence. It's a good start.
Well,
I think I've put everyone to sleep.
No, it's fine. Question from me, Ryan. I mean, a couple of really interesting points. I think one that I'll reiterate is you're right. I think everyone, online people instantly think of Amazon, and yes, it is the £800 gorilla in the room, but it does have its weaknesses. Every business has its weaknesses, and Amazon has its weaknesses as well. And there are ways to outmaneuver people like Amazon. As you say, they're not built for a customized or a local service, or being a local company. So you can approach it in that way. What services have you seen in most demand over the past sort of 10, 12 months that have come through from your clients?
It's, I mean, the services mainly from our point of view are improving people's social media presence. That's probably number one. Everyone, we get a lot of inquiries from businesses that say, we know we need to do social media, or we know we need to do social media better. Can you help us? Because it's that case of it. I think perhaps a lot of people are taking time to address this stuff because they're unable to go out and do face-to-face meetings. They got more time to think about this stuff. I mean, a kind of, if you look at a parallel, I know that a lot of builders and gardeners are really busy at the moment because people are spending more money on their home because they're not going away on holiday. Okay, that was I'm telling you this because I think there's similarities. I think that there's, a lot of clients have said, okay, we're not going to be able to do this year. What else can we do? So they're seeking out services which are relevant to the time, And I just another really, this is a bit as an off topic, but one of our clients sells very, very high. I was talking about travel. So one of our clients sells very, very high end holidays, basically tours around the world, going from 15,000 up to 100,000. These are people often of retirement age or celebrities who want to do these like custom made tours. Now, as you probably know, the travel industry just fell off a cliff because there was no, hardly any flights going out. And she went from selling 400 holidays last year to 9 in 2020. So in 2019, 400, 2020, 9, and it was just a disaster. I spoke to her and said, what is it you do? She said, I arrange travel for holiday, holidays, high-end holidays. And I said, no, actually what you do is you arrange travel. So we came up with a plan for her to target people who were traveling. So there were sports teams, diplomats, healthcare professionals, all of these people who needed to travel, needed somebody to help them arrange these travels. So it was about identifying what the machine of their business did as opposed to the product they sold.
Interesting. Very good. The other thing I was going to ask you as well was, obviously there's been a massive shift to online for all the obvious reasons. What would be your 3 bits of advice or your 3 top tips in migrating to online? Where do you start, and what are your three things that you would get up and running first?
I mean, it's difficult to it's difficult to say because every business is different. But really, I mean, going back to one of my previous slides, which is to start with the basics. It's like you can set, with with what's available today to all of us, any business can set up a fairly simple and competent website in a matter of hours. You know, there are tools out there like, you know, Squarespace, WordPress, Wix. All of these tools make creating a web presence for your business very, very simple. If you are clear on your brand, on why your business exists, what the identity of your business is, and you're able to put it online, that's a really good start for me. Secondly, I would look at your digital communication platforms. So do you have a mailing, an email marketing list? You know, do you use something like MailChimp? Do you have a means by which you can send communications out to people via, you know, WhatsApp or SMS or email, a digital method? And then thirdly, I would look at your social channels. Is your brand under the noses of your clients on social media? Because if you're not on social media, your competitors will be. So you really need to be aware that, you know, you need to be putting out content that's helpful, that's communicative, that's relevant, that's present. And it sounds like a big task, but it's actually a really small thing to do. Once a week, there's a tool. I got a question here from Pete Moles. Hello, Pete. That said, what platforms do you use? So for social media marketing, we use something called Hootsuite, which is a scheduling tool. Lots of people will be familiar with it. Some people won't. Hootsuite enables, now I've got to be honest, I'm a bit of a dinosaur when it comes to social media, but we've got a great person, two great people in the business who are fantastic at social media. For our clients, they probably spend 2 hours at the beginning of every week scheduling posts to go out at regular intervals at optimized times across different social media platforms. And it might be the same content. And you asked for three things. Why it's good to start with your website is because you can create long form content. Long form content is maybe a piece of writing or a product review or something that has a lot of words, basically. You can take those lot of words from your website and you can chop them up into an email newsletter that draws people to your website, tweets, Facebook posts, Instagram posts that draw people to your website. So you're creating long form content and you're chopping it up into bite-sized pieces that will attract clients, you know, or donors or fundraisers or whatever to your business or your charity or your establishment, whatever. So I mean, that's what I would start with in terms of the three things to focus on: website, digital channels, communication channels, and social media.
And you'd recommend Hootsuite for?
There are lots out there. I mean, there are scheduling tools. There are native scheduling tools in most social media platforms. So things like Facebook Business, you know, Twitter for Business, all of these things. There are other tools that are paid for, and there are other tools which are free. There's something called Buffer, which is quite a good one. You know, TweetDeck, there's Hootsuite I've mentioned already. There are lots out there, and I think it can get overwhelming. If you don't know which one is right for you, speak to somebody who's already using one. You know, ask you know, ask your suppliers or ask your friends or whatever, do they use a social media scheduling tool, and which one works best for them? You know, it's the same as using other platforms like CRMs or whatever. There are a million out there. It can be overwhelming to choose one. Speak to somebody who's using one, and it might be right for you and it may not be.
Peter's asked, what software do you recommend for bulk WhatsApp to group messaging? Okay,
that's a really good one. We're not actually using one at the moment. I think that we have started using something called Planoli, and I got a feeling that does WhatsApp, but I might be wrong. And again, just to stress my point, and thanks for the putting me on the spot, Pete. I'm actually I probably would come back to you on a question of that, because I'm not the expert. I'm more I like colouring in our business. So the expert is really Nicole. But what I can do is find out And what we'll do is we'll post something on our social channels, all right? So if you follow us on at Monchu_UK on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, I'll post something today which addresses that question.
Sounds good.
Okay.
That's fantastic. Yeah, and I think certainly one of the things that we found here at the Chamber is I think the sort of attitudes as people have kind of gone through the lockdown in March last year, there was a lot of businesses went into hibernation, and now we're in lockdown, as you say, because we only felt it was going to be for a few months, and then everything would be okay. But now that it's dragged on, one of the things that we've found here, and speaking to a lot of businesses throughout the Thames Valley, is that the businesses that have kept on marketing and kept on, and I think you put it very well, Ryan, is being present. And it's not about spending huge amounts of money on marketing, but the ability to keep marketing, to keep saying we're open for business, and to keep getting yourself in front of your customers, I think has paid dividends for a lot of businesses that we've spoken to. The ones that are beginning to play catch up are the ones that went into hibernation, in the first lockdown. And I think it's very much a case of adaptation, but realizing that even now this isn't going to go away anytime soon. So we've got to learn to live with it. And I think that's really quite an important thing for a lot of businesses to understand as well.
Yeah, just to further that point, Sandy, and again a short anecdote about branding and marketing and brand awareness, right? In the 1930s, Coca-Cola, the Coca-Cola company, decided, or one of the chief executive at the time decided to put a vending machine in every hotel and motel in the United States. Okay, and at the time, vending machines were incredibly expensive. They didn't make any money. They were difficult to service and repair. And the rest of the Coca-Cola company said, this is an insane venture. We're going to lose millions of dollars and we're going to end up with egg on our face. By the 1950s, they'd achieved this, and people in America, instead of saying, I'm going to get a soda, they'd say, I'm going to get a Coke, because their brand was so present everywhere they went that it lodged itself in people's psyches. And that's what you can do very inexpensively using social media, using email, by speaking to people, is get yourself in front of your clients and buy that real estate in their minds. That's what branding is. Agreed.
My last shout out is, you were talking about starting small, and I read a fantastic book recently called Atomic Habits. And it's all about that marginal gains principle and the 1% principle. And they always use the analogy of the British cycling and Dave Brailsford. But that concept that if you get 1% better every day, you'll end up over 3,500% better at the end of the year. So I think, as you say, it's about it's big lofty goals are great, but can often be very daunting. And the best way to tackle them is to tackle them on a sort of micro level.
Is that analogy? How do you eat an elephant?
Yeah,
one bite at a time.
Fantastic. Is there any more questions that anyone else has at the minute? Ryan's email address is on the finishing slide.
That's the general one. The first or the second slide, I think, has got my personal email address. So I'd invite any members of the chamber, if you have any questions that you didn't think of during the presentation or that come to you after, email me and I will be very happy to answer as best I can. If I don't have the answer, then I'm sure I know somebody who does.
That's fantastic. Thank you very, very much this morning, Ryan. Very insightful, very good webinar. So thank you for having us on. As I mentioned, the webinar was recorded this morning. It is being recorded this morning, and it'll be live on the Thames Valley Chamber YouTube page and on our website as well post-event. So you can always go back and revisit it, have a look through the site, have a look through the slides, and get what you need from those. If there is any questions that you'd like to submit to Ryan, contact details are on there. Failing that, then please do drop me an email as well, and I'm more than happy to put you in touch. So again, thank you very much from me, and I hope everyone has a fantastic day.
Thanks for having me, Sandy, and thanks for everyone for listening.
No bother at all. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.